going to go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and get started. The roll call, please.
Chairman Blair J. Siglin.
Here.
Vice Chair Wayne M. Richards.
Here.
Secretary Treasurer Gino Enright is currently out of the room. Commissioner Georgie Mastix.
Here.
Commissioner Peyton MacArthur.
Here.
Executive Director Manuel Almira.
I'm here.
Court Counsel Grace Picken.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum. And Commissioner Enright just entered the room.
I had to take a call.
We understand. Okay, can we please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The motion to approve the minutes of the last.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Masters.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Enright. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 5-0. Additions, deletions, presentations, and announcements. So moved.
Commissioners, I'd like to mention that we have an addition on the consent agenda. That's E12, Palm Beach Gaming. Approval of the third amendment to the day cruise operating agreement. Under deletion, we'd like to pull G2, Earth 17 project. We'll bring that back in October. And on the presentations, one brief presentation, and then of course the main presentation for the Army Corp of Engineers. If I may, I'd like to continue with the first presentation. Yes, okay. Commissioners, I'd like to introduce Louis Rick Glacetas, our new compliance manager. Rick, why don't you please stand up? There he is. He's originally from Puerto Rico, comes to us with extensive background in distribution business experience, security, and was active duty member of the United States Marine Corps. Ooh, you know enough to fool around with.
Did you say the Marine Corps?
Yes. Number B, huh? And he is now the new compliance manager. He works directly for Ken under security. That is correct. Rick will be playing a pivotal role in ensuring that compliance with the Maritime Transportation Security Act, the Occupational Health and Security Act, and federal regulation, railroad regulations. So, Rick, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Now, Commissioners, if we may, can we continue with the presentation from the Army Corp of Engineers?
Yes.
Mr. Almira, may I interrupt for one moment? Mr. Chairman, may I have a motion to accept the additions and deletions to the agenda?
Commissioner Richards, second, Commissioner Masters. Any discussion, all in favor, all opposed, carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Just notified that Mr. Tim Murphy is on the phone with the Colonel, so it'll take a couple of seconds.
All right, well, we can come back. I guess we can.
Maybe we can go on to consent?
Yeah, we can go over the consent. We'll look at the agenda. See if there's anything that we need to have explained or talked about. No?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, motion, Commissioner Richards, second, Commissioner Mastix. Any other discussion on consent? Not carries 5-0.
We checked, you still on the phone?
Well, we can do, you can do your exact, we'll say the.
Best for last, okay, sure.
Yeah, we'll do the, your report and engineering business.
Of course. All right, Commissioners, well, we recently had Tropical Storm Erica, and which resulted in a good port hurricane exercise. What you're looking at is the necessary precautions Stone Rock took to secure its terminal. Stone Rock folks were sufficiently confident that this type of configuration, which they also blocked that front view, will be sufficient to contain all of the materials within that footprint. There were no challenges, and they have consistently told us that they can do this basically less than 2 hours. We then go on. On September 2nd and September 3rd, the Florida Ports Council met in Sarasota, Florida, and had two meetings, the FPC and of course the FESTED meeting. Yours truly, for me, it was my last meeting as the FESTED chairman. During the meeting, the Port of Palm Beach officially received approval for $1.5 million, 50-50 match, for our passenger loading bridge. Additionally, as you will hear later, the chairman of the Transportation Committee will reintroduce Representative Rooney will introduce a $25 million FESTED grant for all 15 ports, where today that total is $15 million. Not much other thing happening other than we did have a couple of visitors. One was the Quantum Foundation. 8 individuals showed up, and we provided them with a port tour, port presentation. This is a nonprofit organization dedicated to finding funds for health organizations. They are a local organization. Secondly, Mr. Carl Baker represented the Port of Palm Beach on the port planning presentation to the American Planning Association Annual Convention in conjunction with Port Everglades, Port of Miami, FDOT District 4. That was held in Hollandale Beach. We are expecting visits from Bobby Levine and Donald Foster. They will be here on October the 6th. They will also like to see a port presentation as well as a port tour. Under the events, you will see also that in E10 we have community events, but as I before mentioned, the Florida Ports Council meeting that took place back on September 3rd. The Intermodal Association of North America Expo, that's IANA, that will be September 20th through the 22nd. That will be held, if I'm not mistaken, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Florida Ports Council will have a fly-in, it's the usual once a year. Several ports fly into Washington, D.C. to meet up with their elected officials. That is scheduled for October 7th through the 8th. And last but not least, the AAPA 2015 Annual Convention. That is coming up November 2nd through the 4th in Miami. If I can go back to my meeting during FESTED, we had a representative from FDOT. And just to give you a brief peek under the tent of what they're working on. They're working down towards 2040. One of the biggest challenges they're finding is that with more and more electric cars, less and less revenue from taxes are being generated for the state of Florida. But by 2040, they are anticipating that self-driven cars not only can take you to a point of destination, but the car can also be programmed to go back to your house by itself, and they'd be pre-programmed to come back and pick you up. Think about that for parking and our revenue, but that's 2040. That's way down the road. That's it for me, County Commissioners. If you have any questions, please.
Any questions? Okay, let's go to,
Who's here? Where? Oh, there he is. Okay. Heidi. Commissioners, I'd like to bring up Tim Murphy. We all know him. He's
absolutely.
a good friend.
Welcome.
Tim, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Board members, it's good to see you again. I keep showing up like a bad penny. I keep handing it off to people, and they go off and do wonderful things, and somehow I get the summons to come back. It's a great opportunity to be back before the board. I wanted to pass along updates on 2 issues that we're working right now. Then one is our O&M project. Our traditional used to be annual, now it's every other year project. We're looking at dredging. My guess is around 300,000 cubic yards of material. We're going to advertise that contract in probably early November, depending on budgets, with a contract award sometime January, with a start work date in February. It's a little later than we normally do it, but we think it's smart for the storm, but also it's almost a requirement for budgets because budgets seem to be arriving later and later every year. So, Again, that's 300,000 yards of sand on the dry beach. The town of Palm Beach has already come up, reviewed the plans and specs. They're a little trust but verify thing. We told them we're going to do it. They reviewed our plans and specs. Confirmed we're going to do it. There's no issues there. We're waiting to go through our little process in order to get the contract out on the street. Not expecting any drama there on that particular project, other than it is late in the year. We will probably be impacting the town of Palm Beach shores. The good news that we have is it's half the amount of material that we graded last time, so our time on target should be a lot shorter, or so the pain will be a less duration than it's been in the past. We are working a 1,000-foot extension of the beach placement area to allow. Right now we place sand 3,130 feet south of the inlet. We're looking to add 1,000 feet to that. We completed our internal environmental document. It's been made public, signed off on. Now that we're doing a permit mod request in order to allow us to do that. Don't know if that permit mod will be ready by the time the dredge shows up. If not, we'll use it next time. We have plenty of capacity on the beach this time, so we're not worried about it. It's just something we want to have in our pockets. So we'll continue to work that. We will be scheduling a tri-party meeting in the coming, probably October timeframe, to come down and bring everyone up to speed on where we are on our O&M job. Sir, the second item that I have is our deepening project. I want to bring everyone up to speed. Really, there's not a whole lot of new information here, sir, other than the standpoint that we did what we said we were going to do. We had the largest project possible authorized by Congress. Understand that the port probably wants to build something a little smaller, probably something on the order of widening only, but again, that has not been decided yet. I encourage the Port Authority to work regionally to come up with a plan that is acceptable. That includes government bodies, users, and pilots. As soon as the port has an idea of what they want and is regionally acceptable, we are ready to re-engage to do whatever analysis is necessary to make sure that that project that it can move forward. Whatever mechanism we need to do that with, we will do that at that time. In the meantime, though, I have to remind the board that Congress Woman Frankel essentially has a hold on this project until we can get regional approval of it. She has sent a letter to the Assistant Secretary's office that says, please do not fund this project until we can come up with something that's regionally acceptable. So I will not get any more money from a federal side in order to assist with this until a regional project is provided. We stand ready to proceed, though, as soon as that regional project is made available. Sir, that's all I wanted to pass on this time, sir, subject to the board's questions.
Question that, on that, could any member of Congress put a stop on a project this magnitude? And anyone from Montana could come down and say, from Florida, we don't want a certain project, and they can.
Sir, I grew up on a farm in Alabama, and every year a congressman from New York used to put in a thing to stop the peanut quota program that I used to grow peanuts with on my farm. Sir, this particular, what makes this one so important is, yes, sir, there are 535 members of Congress, but this is the congresswoman that represents the district in which the project is located. And also, sir, in a time of tight budgets, if you don't have the proverbial picket fence where everyone is lined up in supporting your project, that's just an excuse not to provide funding, because there's more projects out there than there are money to even come close to executing them. So it only takes one fly in the ointment, and you're in a whole load, sir. So a very good question, and normally, we would rise above that, but it is the local representative, sir.
But of course, she's going to be redistricted out of that, our district. She's not going to be our representative more than likely, it seems.
I understand that could be a possibility, but I would think that as long as she's still a member of Congress, that that will have to be taken care of, sir.
Yeah, well, we're trying, believe me, we've had countless meetings with our neighbors, and Dave MacArthur's met, our directors met, and we'll continue to meet, but I don't know if any of the pilots are here today, but
They are.
I know one of them wanted to maybe say something about the necessity of this. I don't know if he's come on up, and I know that you have talked to Manny about the importance of it, and just your feelings on what you feel is really important.
Well, sure. Our part of it, my name is Captain Reed Hansen. I'm one of the 5 pilots here. Our part of it's more of a safety factor, and we've been using these same parameters here for decades, and ships just keep getting bigger. And we're kind of getting phased out as a port. We turn ships away all the time. They end up going to Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, Miami, and that cargo ends up getting here on a tractor trailer instead of a ship right here in our backyard. So as you can see, the channel is 400 feet wide at the entrance, and then
You could go out over the point.
then it narrows to 300 right here. And this is what we call a bottleneck, and it's a dangerous area for larger ships to make turns safely. And you can see how it kind of, the land, the shallow water sticks out into the channel right there. So on the turn, which should be, the same width as the channel, actually narrows to 300. So this really limits the size of vessels that we can bring into the port due to safety concerns and accidents that we have had previously there. And that's in and out, but especially in. And here's another concern here. This is a lesser concern, but it would be much more efficient for us to maneuver ships in the basin if this sand here was taken out. You can see you can make a straight approach to these slips. As it is now, you have to come in like this, turn like this, and then the flood current is hitting the stern of the ship. The ships want to set this way. It makes this maneuver a lot more difficult and time consuming.
Right, one other thing you might want to point out is that, you said larger ships, but, our berths only take a certain length of ship.
Sure.
So, you're saying larger ships, but, they're not changing dramatically. I think you need to make that a little clear for...
Well, one of the other things that is happening is that even the ships that we can bring in, that are borderline ships, we're having to reduce their draft. So a ship agent will call and say, we want to bring this ship in with this much cargo at 33 feet of draft. When you look at the length and width, beam, and the draft, and we say, no, you can't bring it in at that draft. You have to bring it in at 28 foot, 5 foot less. So now it becomes not a viable option for them. They decide, well, we'll just take Fort Lauderdale instead. So we're bringing in ships that are not to capacity because they just can't be to capacity and still come in safely. So that's,
yeah, I understand. Well, we appreciate it. Go ahead.
Yeah, this channel has not been improved since a very special year, 1963, 52 years ago. Doesn't make sense for that. I was the commissioner that sat in on quite a few meetings with our neighbors and the environmental groups. And one of these meetings was the day after there was an accident, or near accident, I should say. A similar situation. They have not been expanded, dried over water. Planes are larger, they need more capacity. Same thing here. In 52 years, there has to be some reasonable improvement. We've made it clear we don't want the granddaddy plan. Some of the members of these groups have said, well, gee, go back and reduce it. So we do need to re-engage and work with them because we don't want the entire plan, but we do need relief in, I think, 3 key areas. So we do need to re-engage.
we agree, thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, can someone tell me why Lois Frankel is opposed? Why is our Congress lady opposed to this channel improvement?
There's a representative here from her.
Is Manny here?
I'm here.
No, she has something.
Hi.
Come on, go ahead. Come on up to the mic and say your name, please, for the record.
My name is Felicia Goldstein. I'm Congresswoman Frankel's district director. I would like to make it clear it's not an opposition to a plan necessarily. It's the fact that the Congresswoman has repeatedly said this since she's been elected to Congress, that she would like the port to sit with their neighbors and come up with a plan that is amicable, that the port can decide what they want to look like in the future, where they want to go, and that the neighbors that they are joined with can all agree upon. So until that happens, I've been to some of the meetings, and there's still been some conversation with regard to what the plan that the port wants to submit to the Corps, the revised plan, and what the agreements are with the neighbors. She would love for you all to come up with some sort of agreement that everyone can live in harmony and the port can do what it needs to do to keep generating business and jobs, and that the neighbors can feel confident that the port is where they believe they're comfortable as far as being adjoining neighbors of this port.
Thank you for your comments.
you may recall I sat in on most of those meetings, and my overwhelming impression was that this well-intentioned group was comprised of probably 8 to 12 different segments of our community. We had fishermen were there, we had the scuba divers there, we had the snorkelers there, we had our neighbors from town of Palm Beach there, and there has not been everyone has their own different issues, different concerns, and to suggest that we would be able to corral everyone and get consensus is very difficult and has been impossible thus far. We have since gone back, this board actually passed a resolution. We don't want the grant scheme. I think we're down to 3 items. But when the different entities around the table speak, we hear very different perspectives and different desires. They're well-intentioned, everybody means well, of course, but it's a massive group, and we have been unable to corral and get consensus. So we're where we are. We haven't had meetings in weeks. I would love to invite the Congresswoman to join us, maybe help us, because she's phenomenal at bringing consensus.
Well, if I can, thank you, and I'm sure she would love to do that. One of the first meetings she held when she was elected was in this room, I believe, with everyone, including Chamber of Commerce's, the Business Development Board, and she made this exact statement to them that, please, all of you sit. And if I can just say to you that a good place that you may want to start is, she also represents the Port Everglades port, where they have done a phenomenal job of gaining all the consensus of their business community, their residential people. Everyone there has been fully on board. They've been working 18 years to get a dredging project completed and approved, which hopefully looks like we are going to be moving forward. And that happened because that community did such a good job of engaging everyone's support, getting everyone involved, creating what they call a Port Everglades advocacy team, which is coming up to DC the week after next, lobbying once again. That includes not only elected officials and their Chamber of Commerce, but veterans who are going to be training for jobs there, veterans groups, people who live in the surrounding areas. And I think that it may be worth your while to perhaps speak to some of those people on the Port Everglades advocacy team to get a start and see how that can be done.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything for?
If I may.
Go ahead.
All right. I have worked in Port Everglades for 15 years, and Felicia is quite correct. It's actually 20 years process for them to finalize and get this project to deepen. The difference between Port Everglades and the difference here is that Port Everglades wanted, and I believe they received the approval to go down 48 or 50 feet.
47, sir.
47.
Is that right, Jerry?
They bought an extra foot, so it's 48.
I was going to get to that. They went ahead and bought an addition. Now, Port Everglades has please let me finish the statement and don't jump into any kind of conclusion. Port Everglades has a dire need to get into that 47, 48, 49 because they are going after these huge mammoth ships that are supposed to be coming across the Panama Canal. Good luck to them. I hope they get it. Now, in our case, when we made our study, the study called for 39 feet, if I recall. Most of the tenants said they will support it, but they don't need it. And that is, in my opinion, where we really start veering off. Therefore, what we really want to stress here is a safety issue. It has nothing to do with tomorrow we need a ship that's going to come in here at 37. Now, as the pilot, as the Captain Reed mentioned, we just recently lost a shipment of steel. They went from here and actually could not come in, and then they went around and went all the way up to Tampa. That ship drafted about 35 feet, 36 feet. There's no way they could have made it here. But putting that aside, that only comes maybe once or twice a year, or if we're lucky, is safety. And please, let's hear what the pilots are saying. These individuals take their lives in their hands, plus, our cruise ship. Those are, what I've been told, those are really, really rough waters in order to navigate in and to navigate out. And if we do nothing, at least let's make sure that we go after that safety factor.
as dictated or suggested by our pilots. Science.
Well, we've made that perfectly clear that for us as a commission, it's strictly safety. It's not to increase the size of the ships. It's not to bring these huge ships from Panama. It's not to bring any more ships, but it's just going to make it a lot easier and safer. Exactly. So
Much more efficient.
exactly. So that's what we're hoping for.
Manny, I strongly encourage you, if you haven't already done it, to get Lois Frankel and corral her and coerce her into opening up her mind to what we're talking about. I mean, it's not like we're tearing the world apart or anything bad. Lois is in a great position of great power. She can do harm to us, which she is doing now by not approving what we want to do. So I think you and anybody else with power has got to work on Lois and tell her to wise up and come on and support us.
Right.
And I think it's very important.
I'd like to invite Lois to our tri-party meeting coming up in October. Let's see if her schedule allows her to be here. Pending that, we will definitely do as you suggest, Commissioner. It's not like we haven't, but we'll do it again.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. And I think that, with all due respect to Congresswoman Lowis Frankel, she needs to understand that, in my opinion, her letter is doing more harm to building consensus than good. For the simple reason that if I were in the town of Palm Beach, or if I was another entity that wanted no dredging under any circumstances, Lois just gave me a trump card. There will be nothing unless we agree. Well, why should I agree if I don't want anything? And I won't. And if I was in their position, I would be tickled pink. Lois just gave us a get out of jail card. The port can do nothing, which is what we want. So there's no reason for us to talk to the port and to bargain in good faith, or to try to address the safety concerns or the other concerns. Because Lois has just tilted the playing field. And I think Lois needs to be aware of that. And I think she is aware of that, obviously.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to add too, I agree with Commissioner MacArthur, but I guess my comment is, do we have to wait until someone dies out there until we have someone from Washington to look at this and say, hey, we need to straighten this out, because after 52 years, we haven't asked for any changes. We're still using the channel where people can get killed making that turn. Or do we really have to wait until someone dies? So,
Good, thank you. Well, I know Tim's doing everything he can for us, he always has, and we appreciate all your help, and we'll keep on doing our best here, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We will continue to use the tri-party venue as an opportunity to try to help build consensus. Sorry, I was remiss. I have two guests with me. Well, not really guests. Jerry Scarborough is our Water Resources Branch Chief working for me. And then Lieutenant Colonel Himes, you can stand. Lieutenant Colonel Himes is our Deputy District Engineer. Sitting in, he's the deputy for our Colonel Jason Kirk. So we're going to use those people if you can come down.
Well, thanks for coming, we appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, we have the engineer report.
We have
cards.
Yeah, please, Lisa. Can you say your name?
Yes. My name is Lisa Interlandi. I am an attorney with the Everglades Law Center. We represent the Sierra Club, the Florida Wildlife Federation, the Center for Biological Diversity, as well as the Save Our Animal Coalition. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why we have the concerns that we do, and just kind of lay some of those out for you so that it's out here kind of on the record for everyone to understand. First, I would say that we do support the port maintaining its authorized channel depth of 33 feet. We think that that's something that the port should be focusing on, and we have no objection to that whatsoever. So we urge you to focus on that, because that's something that we all do agree with. That's something that has had a big impact on the port. In fact, not being able to maintain that channel depth is what caused some of the boats to not be able to come in, or be able to come in at low draft. So we understand that you guys have issues here with regard to shoaling and other things. We support maintaining the authorized depth. Now, I have a question, which is, I thought that that was was supposed to be addressed somewhat in the 2011 Advanced Maintenance Plan. I'm not sure what depth that authorized, the inlet, mouth of the inlet to be dredged to, but I wonder why we're not seeing results from that. So that is just a question that I'm kind of putting out there. As for the other particular proposals, the area to the south end of Peanut Island, we believe that that would cause negative impacts to seagrass, marine habitat, and recreation. We are concerned about the impacts that it would have in terms of erosion and shoaling, erosion on the south end of the island. And so those are some of the concerns we have with regard to that. We have had some...
Let me just interrupt for a second. Now, have you done in-depth studies to back what you're saying, or you just, like you said?
I'm just going by what the Corps identified in its own feasibility study, that there were significant seagrass resources in that area.
Okay.
Although we do have experts that are part of our coalition and that we have consulted with that concur with that, and also suggest that seagrass in that area is important, primarily because of its proximity to the warm water refuge for the manatees, and that is an area of feeding for cows and calves.
Where are you talking?
The south area of Peanut Island.
Area D.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. As far as the area C, I believe you guys are calling it the channel widening, the dog leg kind of area right here. This is an area that we have issues with because of the destruction of marine resources with extremely high economic and environmental resource values in this area. There is a large amount of coral and other marine hard-bottom habitat that has been growing for the 50 years that this channel has been in existence there. This is an area where I personally grew up scuba diving when I was a kid, and it's one of the first places that my parents ever took me scuba diving, is right there at that area. It's a beautiful area. We have videotaped it, and I encourage you guys, I'll be glad to share that with you guys so that you can see what's actually going on underwater there. It's extremely high habitat with coral, sponges, and a lot of marine life there. We feel that expanding that area would cause serious impacts to Peanut Island. We feel that there's a very high likelihood of significant sedimentation and turbidity, which could cause impacts as far-reaching as Phil Foster Park, possibly further north up into the Little Munyon Island area by MacArthur Beach State Park, and also to the south end of the jetty, going out the south side of the jetty, which is a very high valued and high quality recreation and snorkeling area. So we are very concerned about the economic and environmental impact of these resources. We feel like, we have also heard from our experts that this is a very dense area in terms of its coral substrate, and that accomplishing the project that you all have described would require significant blasting, which would further exacerbate the impacts to these natural resources. As far as the safety concerns, we recognize that. However, I would just submit that safe operations have been occurring in this inlet for more than 50 years. I recognize that there are larger ships that the port would like to bring in. However, as was stated, you are limited by the size of your berths, and I would encourage you to continue to operate within your means that exist today. You all are a niche port. We encourage you to continue to focus on those efforts and focus on what is working. We would very much like to work with you to further those efforts, but it's the expansion, the deepening, the widening, blasting, expansion areas. We feel that they haven't been adequately considered from an environmental review perspective. We feel like they are negative impacts to our economy, and we really want to see you focus on the areas where we do agree, which is maintaining your authorized depth. We urge you to shelve the project. I'm going to say also, thank you for giving me so much time. Okay, thank you for allowing me to express these concerns. I am, but I would just say that we have concerns about how this project moves forward procedurally. To the extent that you would seek to move forward under that existing authorization, that presents legal issues that we do have some concerns with. So we are always glad to sit down and talk with you. We are glad we have had discussions, and we are glad to continue those discussions. I would urge you to focus on the areas where we can agree, and the thing that is the most pressing in maintaining those authorized
You do this
steps.
on your own? Are you hired by the town of Palm Beach, or
No,
you just
I
came out as
represent-
a good citizen, or how did you wind up coming to the port to I mean, why, how did you get involved in this project?
I represent the Sierra Club, the Florida Wildlife Federation, and the Center for Biological Diversity. We have submitted extensive comments to the Corps relative to the project. We also do provide counsel to and are kind of a part of the Save Our Inlet Coalition
So they
and work with
They
them.
hired you, basically, the Sierra Club, or?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, we
one of
are,
groups-
those are our clients who we represent.
And yeah, the town of Palm Beach actually hired you too, I assume.
No, the town of Palm Beach has not hired me.
Oh, okay, so you don't get any, it's just from the Sierra Club and any of the other? I guess-
Our work is funded by donations from a lot of different sources. However, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily relevant here. I think that what I'd like to focus on is maybe how we can move forward. I would be glad to sit down and talk with the port, with the Corps. We want to share our concerns and,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
I was remiss, and I gotta say, Lisa has tremendous credibility. And she's almost always accurate. Well, I wouldn't know, I've never known her not to be.
Thank you.
But I have a question, I guess, for the Corps. This has come up repeatedly, and I meant to ask it earlier. The original project, as it was approved, if we scale it back and scale it down to first only the things we agree and then we argue about whatever the other things are, is it necessary, I've been told time and time again, that it's necessary to withdraw the entire project from consideration and start all over again. And then I've been told that it's not necessary, we can lock in, no, we don't want 1 through 6, we just want 7 through 9. Which is accurate? Can we agree to scale it down and address people's concerns that somehow those other things might reappear?
Commissioner, the large project is authorized by Congress. If we build a subset of that project, you will not have to go back to Congress. However, that's where we talk about if there's some new analysis that's needed or something, we can accomplish that once we figure out the scope of what the project is. But you will not have to go back to Congress for authorization.
But can we permanently eliminate things that we all agree that we don't want to consider? So that they don't have to worry about, us having a recall. Right.
There's a new provision in one of the water bills. I'm not as up on it as I probably should be, sir. But if you don't build a project after 7 years, it's automatically deauthorized. And so I think any pieces that we did not build would be automatically deauthorized. You don't have to do anything to request that. I believe that's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, thanks. Good. Tom? No.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. In addition to my written report, on September 9th, I met with the City of Riviera Beach City Engineer Terrence Bailey. We discussed the use of potential MPO local project funds for the placement of a visual barrier wall along Old Dixie Highway. It was a very good meeting. The visual wall, it would be like typical to a sound barrier wall that's along I-95. Construction would have a lesser impact on utilities with the use of an H-pile, and then you slide the panels down in between the 2 H-piles, which would be at grade. So the impact on utilities would be a lot less. The wall would improve the safety in the area along the railroad because it would be along the west right-of-way line, the east right-of-way line of Old Dixie Highway in between the roadway and the railroad. It would improve the safety, it would be beautification, you could add accent vegetation in areas to help improve the look, and to a more of a minimum extent, it would also have a sound barrier effect on it, also from the railroad. I am working on getting a meeting scheduled with Nick Uren at the MPO to discuss this funding a little bit more, and Carl Baker will be joining me on that. This project and the funding, it would be a permanent solution to the temporary containment wall that is currently in place. It would make our cargo area in that southwestern area of the port, it would make it more functional without working around the container wall in the future. And if that's okay with the board, I will continue to pursue this funding and report back at a future meeting.
Tom, I think this is the first I've heard of that. I know that Manny, you and I and Carl have been trying to address the visual impact. I drive over Dixie every day. I drove southbound today. It looks really bad. I know we're an industrial port, but I'm glad we're looking at alternate ways to improve the view or the vista. Terrence is actively involved in these discussions, the city's engineer.
I've talked to Terrence. I've actually even talked to Bruce Guyton about it. He's the city's representative of the MPO. So, and they're on board. They're even looking to maybe expand the limits of the project north and south.
I will say, whatever the long-term fix is, there has to be something done immediately. I've been saying this for a while. I guess I haven't jumped up and down enough. It looks really bad. I know that Director Elmira stacked a couple of containers too high, maybe 6 to 8 across. Quite frankly, that's a decent first step because that pretty much blocks the view, some of the view, but we're only 8 containers. We probably need 50 across. But we need to do something short term. It looks very, very bad. I started to take pictures of myself and bring them to the meeting. I don't want to do that. It just looks really bad. So we should drive Dixie and look at it ourselves. So we need a short-term solution as well. Okay. Soon.
Tom, you may want to tell them where you met Bruce Guyton.
Oh, I met Bruce Guyton at the Florida Engineering Society meeting on Tuesday night. Nick gave a talk at the Florida Engineering Society, and he was there. And it was
all right. Thank you.
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Any other questions? Okay. Business development report.
Good afternoon. The gala coordination is coming along very positively. Currently, we have $82,500 in secured sponsorships. All those thank you letters have gone out. The sponsorship page is now live on the port's website, and in just a moment you'll see a sample of that on your screen. We have 1 platinum sponsor, CH Trim Hill, and 2 gold sponsors, AECOM and Tropical Shipping. Those 3 sponsors will be provided the benefit of participation in the speaking program. We have $12,500 secured in ticket and table sales. That and the sponsorship together totaled $95,000. Currently, we are $30,000 favorable to our original budget. We still continue getting RSVPs in daily. Our confirmed attendee count is 286, and we have room for 320. So we have about 30 spots left open currently. And once they're full, we won't be able to sell tickets. The commemorative book is at the printer and will be printed next week. These books, as you may recall, will be given out as gifts at the gala. All contracts have been finalized and final payments will be processed next week. The only contract that may differ is the catering contract, because we won't have a final count necessarily in time to get them payment until perhaps a few days before the event. The gala program is currently being designed. We'll go to the printer October 1st. The speaking program I will start drafting that at the end of next week. Our port video is being produced and will be finalized next week to be shown at the gala. Event coordination has taken place with Palm Beach Ballet, with Celebration, and with Blue Horizon, as well as port security and operations. And last, I'd just like to let you know that Legends Radio continues to provide us public service announcements, which have resulted in additional inquiries and interest in our gala. And Director Almira will be doing a live interview on Legends Radio next Wednesday at 12 noon. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go back to the government affairs report.
Commissioners, Richard Pinsky, and in your book, you've got the actual report, which, if you have any questions, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory as far as updates going on in Tallahassee and Washington. The next item is the items that I'll describe as possible changes to our charter. And I apologize for not being here last month. I was up in Tallahassee, but I did put some memos in the board book, in the record, as well as in the month of June. I did point out that the choices that we have before us are, well, first choice would be do nothing, but it would be perhaps only address one or two items that we may want to approach the legislature with and constitute a local bill. One would be the salary, for example, the compensation. The other would be perhaps the foreign trade zone language. They could be addressed separately, but again, and I think I pointed out before, and I'll say it again, and that is because we were supposed to codify pursuant to Chapter 189 by no later than 2004, we do risk perhaps the legislative staff saying, okay, you want to tweak your charter yet again and you still haven't codified. So it's a possibility that we can get it done, but I just wanted to caution that if we do take that approach, it could be that we get rejected because we didn't codify. And the second option is, of course, a codification. And in that route, the document you have before you, the attempt was to keep the charter as close to its current form as possible and only address either technical changes that perhaps other entities had requested, and really the only two substantive changes are still the salary and the foreign trade zone. So I would like to take this a little slow, Mr. Chairman, and so I have clear direction on what we're going to end up hopefully today, and then I will be submitting that to the Palm Beach County Legislative Delegation by their deadline, which is the end of this month, for a local bill hearing, and I think it's October 15th. Let me preface it by thanking Director Almira. Jara, of course, was very helpful. Paul Zielinski, and also I want to point out Attorney Pam Ryan from the City of Riviera Beach actually helped me a great deal in recreating the historic record to make sure we had accurately before you everything. And I do want to recognize her help in doing that. So on page one, the very first thing you have, there is this item, and there'll be one other item that I believe were inadvertently part of a proposed charter change. And this goes back to, I think, 2 years ago when we first introduced House Bill 1229, where we tried to address building permit issues. And I think at that time, our scribe, who was wordsmithing this, Attorney Terry Lewis, who did a great job, added additional language to support those building code proposals. So I missed it initially. So on page one, you have a highlight of a change, but the net effect of this is we are not changing anything. I'm taking out the word regulation that was put in, I believe, inadvertently. So the net being there's no change. We will have the original charter language in Article 1, Section 2. On page 1 of the proposed legislation, Article 1, Section 2. Okay. The next is the same issue, and you'll find that on page 3, line 71. Again, this was new language with proprietary and regulatory authority. The town of Palm Beach and the city of Riviera Beach pointed it out, and correctly so. This was new language that had escaped our review. Again, when Pam Ryan helped me a great deal putting all of this back together. The next change, so that has the effect of just no change at all back to the original charter. I'd like to come back to the one on page 6, because it's an issue that staff would like to see, but we'll come back to that, and I'd like to go right to the changes on page 8, which again were pointed out, leftover language, taking out the word regulation of projects, development, and restoring that to the original charter language, no change. At the top on line 216 is again a staff ask, which I'll come back to. I'm sorry, if you go back to line 132.
What page again?
Now we're on page 5. This will be the first motion, Mr. Chairman, that I would request. And that is on line 32, page 5, section 3, compensation. The initial salary of each commissioner shall be $16,000. Thereafter, the salary may be adjusted annually by up to 3% by a majority vote of the commission. I'd like to have the commission direction that whether we decide to include it in the codification or introduce it separately, that will be another question that we'll have at the end of this. But for now, do we want to move forward with this language one way or another?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I have a comment. 2 or so months ago, this board made it very clear that we wanted 3 items left. I thought we were very clear. And I believe I spoke extensively about, let's make sure it's 3, not 4, not 5, 3 items. We didn't want anyone fighting with us. We made that direction clear, and we then asked our lobbyists to please go and get the support of our neighboring city. I don't think I should be voting on something when in 2 weeks the final bill has to go. This should have been done, I think it was done 2 months ago. I'm looking for letters of support from Palm Beach and Riviera Beach. I don't want, and I said this, I don't want to go over this today. The deadline is 2 weeks from now. We've had these discussions. If there are questions about codification, we said codify, compensation, free trade zone. Boom. These are the support. So why are we discussing it today?
Let me interject one thing. We did say that at the meeting. The problem is that some of our neighbors, no matter what we do, they keep on changing things. So I think that's a problem, and I don't think they've all agreed. I mean, I think, and Richard could say, I think, maybe the city of Riviera Beach is come around, but I don't know if you've ever got the final approval from Palm Beach, and he's called 1 million times. So what is he supposed to do?
Well, I spoke to Mr. Pinsky a couple of times today and yesterday. Is the town of Palm Beach here? Are you the deputy manager?
Yes.
The town manager told me the deputy manager would be here and he would articulate their issues. So I know what they are, but I'd rather hear it from the sheriff. Sure. They're going to be very clear.
I spoke with Mayor Caliglio this morning as well, and I can share that with you.
Yeah, come on.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Bourgeois, Deputy Town Manager. As far as the items that you mentioned, I don't know if it was June or July that you directed staff to take a look at in regards to changing the charter, the compensation, and the foreign trade zone language. We better understand the foreign trade zone language, and we have no concerns about the compensation, about the foreign trade zone issue. I know that there are a number of other quote, housekeeping items that need to be addressed. We're not concerned about the housekeeping items, but there are some items on that list that we don't consider housekeeping. We consider them to be substantive, and there have been multiple drafts. I haven't been directly conversing with Mr. Pitts, Town Manager Bradford, and our attorneys have, and I know there's been some progress made, but it isn't complete. And I understand the deadlines that are coming up for the delegation meeting, but we're willing to continue working with you all to finish up what we need to finish up to get to agreement on any other outstanding issues.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The town manager, if I may.
Yes.
And I shared this with Mr. Pinsky. The town manager of Palm Beach said that the town's concerns are as follows. You're correct. free trade zone, no problem. Compensation, no problem. I believe the issues now relate to codification of our charter that would say that the port does not have to, is not subject to zoning and permitting authorization of the neighboring municipality. Palm Beach said, we realize that we think that's a River Beach issue, and they said they're surprised that River Beach is okay with that, or maybe okay with that, but the town of Palm Beach said that's their sole issue at this point. Because although it is in our current charter, there is a position out there that says the state statute since surpassed that, and the provisions in our charter no longer valid. So the town of Palm Beach has said that is their sole issue at this point.
Yes, we have differing feedback from the city of Riviera Beach.
They're here.
They're the city. Okay, I won't speak on behalf of the city, but our plain reading of the proposed changes that have been articulated and what we've looked at, there seems to be some conflicts relative to preemption by the state and federal government for regulatory preemptions that we're concerned that the language may be in conflict. We haven't sorted through all those details, but just a quick plain reading, there seems to be an issue.
Well, see, that's, the problem that I have is the most important thing for me is the codification. So, you know, the salary, the foreign trade zone, you know, that's secondary. Codification, we've been trying to do this now for, what, 11 years. And every time it comes up, there's always someone throws a wrench into it. And it's not like we're trying to, you know, change the world. It's just some semantics. But, you know, go ahead, Ann.
Hi, Pamela Ryan, City of Riviera Beach City Attorney. First, I want to thank Mr. Almira and Mr. Pensky for meeting with us. We had 2 very productive meetings starting last week. And
Thank you.
the city does not oppose any of the changes that you are trying to make. And that's what we met about, and we're fine with them. The problem that I have faced with staff in the last couple of days is the codification issue. Staff went through the entire charter, and there are some issues that they take issue with, and unfortunately, we haven't had an opportunity to really drill down on them. They are concerned about some preemption and other issues that we've never dealt with before, and I feel obligated to at least research those issues further. But as it relates to your the changes that we've discussed in the last couple of weeks, I've gone through them with them. We've talked about making some slight changes, and we don't have a problem with the trade zone issue. We certainly don't have a problem with you getting an increase in your salary. I'm sure you deserve it. But we would like a little more time. And just, you know, we've met in the last couple of weeks, but it just has not been enough time to digest your entire charter. Because once it's codified, it becomes a brand new document, you know, and it's in effect in 2015. And because it's the legislature, we have concerns about it superseding other areas of Florida statutes. And those are the things that we need to drill down on.
All right, well, in my knowledge, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I've been around for a while, and I went through it, and I talked to Richard 25 times on the codification, and I didn't see anything that was a major stumbling block. Is there anything specific that you are talking about, or do you have to really go through them?
Well, there's a list, but one of the issues that we've had with the port is over the building permits and the ability to zone. And our position has been that your charter was superseded by, that section of your charter was superseded by Chapter 553 dealing with building codes because it came after. But one of the issues is if you codify after that statute, does the codification of your charter supersede that section of the Florida statutes? And they asked me that. I have not had a chance, we just had a council meeting last night, I have not had a chance to really drill down on that. But it is a concern, and I would be remiss in saying we were okay with the codification without having researched that issue, or proposing some language, which I shared a little bit with Mr. Penske, but we haven't really had a chance to drill down on it. Some language that would make us comfortable saying that you are specifically stating that you're not superseding Chapter 553. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And Ms. Ryan, thank you for your clear explanation. It gets back to we've had this issue for a while now, and it hasn't gone away. And now we are in the final 2 weeks, I believe, of when we need to get this bill up. Is that correct, Mr. Penske? Well, how do we get our neighbors' consent and get up the next 2 weeks? When we've had months, if not the last 3 years, to do this. So I'm not sure this is realistic, this is going to happen. Is there a plan, Mr. Penske, in place to make it happen?
Thank you. And maybe I didn't, I should have maybe approached this a different way. We have to verify to the Palm Beach County Legislative Delegation that at a duly noticed meeting, the Port Commission voted for whatever we're going to present. So what I was trying to do was to show you, in the context of the codification, really there's no changes, but the compensation, if we'll take these items one at a time and declare what we agree to, which I think are going to be the trade zone and compensation, then we at least know that you want to move forward clearly by vote at a duly noticed meeting that you want those 2 items. Then you will then be facing an issue of codification, which the strength of the charter is what it is. So today, if the charter were challenged, or if you wanted to stand up on behalf of the charter in a legal proceeding, those issues that have been raised by the town of Palm Beach, as well as the city of Riviera Beach, are still going to be there. The charter is what it is. It's never really been challenged to any degree. So what they're suggesting is that when it's codified, that at that moment, that would be the last act that the Florida legislature took. So everything that preceded that in history, the legislature, it is interpreted that they contemplated all the statutes and still read your charter and said, we want it. But it still does not mean it supersedes anything. That still has not been determined. So all you'll be faced with is defending or promoting the charter as a charter, or in Florida law, or challenging or defending it in statute. It's still going to be a similar challenge.
I just want to say something. If that be the case, then what you're saying that regardless if we codify it, if we don't, at the end of the day, if we have a problem, we will still end up in litigation or in court or letting the Florida legislature come back and try to figure it out. Am I correct? Because
I would agree with that statement.
Our charter is written in such a way, it's so big in so many places, and because it has been so many years since we've done anything, it's like we would be up to leave the interpretation all the way up the ladder. Am I correct?
I would agree with that interpretation.
So with codification, I think my suggestion is that we just take the 2 and go with that, because codification is going to be, I'm looking at up to here battle. And even let's say, for example, if the city agrees, if the city of Palm Beach agrees, Riviera Beach might not. And then if Riviera Beach agrees, Palm Beach might not. And then let's say they both agree and we get to Tallahassee, and then they say, hey, hold it a minute. We have a Florida statute that supersedes, so we can't stamp this. So it's like where we are. So my recommendation is we just take the 2.
Mr. Pickett, you have anything to add to this?
No, Mr. Penske's been handling this for the court, and has done a good job.
All right. Go ahead.
Ms. Ryan, thank you for all your efforts. Let me ask you a silly question.
Okay, sure.
How long would it take for the city to come up with a specific and irrefutable list of its concerns? Is this something we can do in the next week?
Well, I have my chair here who tells me what to do, and if she says to make it a priority, then it becomes a priority.
I'm sure Ms. Ryan is available tomorrow.
I mean,
but we would have to include town.
Right. is this something we have to post? I mean, and with all due respect to the town of Palm Beach, we're in the city of Revere Beach. I'm not nearly as concerned about the town of Palm Beach as I am the city of Revere Beach. You control us. And also, you know, I mean, Mr. Pinsky, I got at least 6 emails in the last couple of days where he reached out to the city manager of Palm Beach and proposed meetings. Each time he got a email response saying, no, we can't do it. I don't know that it was that important to the town of Palm Beach, or I would have thought they would have been able to make one of those meetings, and they were unable to make any of them. So, but my question is, and I believe Ms. Chair Pardo has responded, can we do this next week? I mean, this has been going on for years. I don't think we want to usurp local planning and zoning authority, but we want to clarify.
Well, Hayden, you just, I mean, repeat your words. I don't think we want to usurp local municipal planning. That's the issue that's really before this board. We're being quiet, we're biting our tongue, we're not saying things. We've heard from our council. Our council has told us, given us its opinion. But we're sitting on our hands. We're sitting on our hands as if, well, you know, maybe something will change. I've heard from our council in the past. Our council has made it very clear as to his position. I'm a member of the Florida Bar. I have a position. My position is that our charter, which was, this provision came in either somewhere from the 20s to the 50s. The state statute that speaks to municipalities shall regulate came up after that. It's clear, that's the latest thing. So we could sit here and say, well, maybe we have superpowers. We don't have superpowers, we don't. I can't fly. So until this body takes a position, we're going to have this come up again and again and again and again. How bad is it for us to be regulated by the city in which we sit for zoning, land use, and permitting? We got through it, we built our slip. It happened, it cost us a few dollars. Let's move on. Does anybody here not want to move on? Do we want to fight this?
Yes. I don't want to fight it, but I mean, we have another attorney now that's been helping out, and I don't think he agrees with your interpretation or our current attorney. So this is not a cut and dry
It's
issue.
a policy issue, Mr. Chairman. Does this body want to fight? Continue to go down this road? I don't.
I don't want to fight. To codify the charter has nothing to do, in my opinion, and with the zoning.
Well,
That's their interpretation.
It's my interpretation as well. But if we want to fight, when we vote, we say we fight, and that's fine. But is that what we want to do? I heard my colleague, I could pay them. I mean, what do you want to do?
With as little effort as necessary, I think we should recognize the zoning and land use permitting authority of the city of Revere Beach.
I agree with that.
My opinion is that we need to, well, we have what, 2 weeks, Mr. Pinsky? What's
2 weeks for the deadline. What Commissioner MacArthur is proposing, not to put words in his mouth, but I think what he's asking is if we can work with all the interested parties, would the Port Commission be willing to either through a special meeting come back, because you don't have to ratify whatever could possibly be agreed upon prior to the end of the month. I could probably call the delegation office and get a little bit of a, you know, up until the local bill, you know, so we may have a little leeway there, a few extra days. Someone I know works in the county commission building, so maybe they can walk up a couple of floors. But the point being, you will have to come back and vote to agree or not agree on whatever happens.
Okay, I guess my question is, since we are in agreement with 2 items, then if we spend 5 days, I guess, and go back and try to look at the other issues. Now, after 5 days, if we don't come to a consensus or, you know, we have problems, because that's not a whole lot of time. I'm going to be honest and truthful. And I've learned from the years that when you ask one question, then sometimes there's a second question, a third question. And I would like to see us do it and codify and everything else. But the way I'm looking at the whole picture, 2 weeks is not enough, and I don't think that we're going to get it done in a week. Now, maybe I'm the devil's advocate in saying that, but I don't do business with Riviera Beach because we're in their district, not Palm Beach, you know. But at the end of the day, I think that, well, if we can take a week and try to do it, but if we cannot be successful, then we go forth with the 2 items. Then we spend the rest of this year writing down A, B, C, and D. And then we try to come together as a court and a city and look at each item that they're concerned about, and then at the items that we're concerned about. So if we can't do it in 5 days, I think we should go forth and just go with the 2 and then come back. Because I just have the feeling that the convocation is going to take months, and more questions and months and meetings, and we'll be going and going. So I would like to make a motion that we take a week and sit down with Mrs. Ryan and see what we can do. And if we feel that it's impossible, then go forward with the delegation with the 2 items, and then take the rest of the year and try to work it out. Because I don't really believe that in 5 days or a week it's going to happen that we agree. And it's not that just that we don't agree. Don't get me wrong. It's just that there's so many other laws and things to be considered. And our attorneys might have to dig deep and go back, and I know the city's going to be going backwards and forth, and so that's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, before you make the motion, I don't want to interfere with the motion being made, but I want to point out, it's the time burden is to the cities and to the other entities, because we need to hear from them what items in the charter. They're asking for more time to review the charter, to see what they feel could be burdensome or conflicting to whatever local laws they may have. So we have to wait for them to come to us. So I don't know if it'll be a week. In other words, we need to hear from them. How long will it take them to go through the charter and say, here are the things we'd like to have changed? So,
right, but Ms. is saying that she wants the 2 items, despite whether or not.
I thought she was asking that she wanted to give us a week.
No, I said, hopefully, if we can't do it in a week, and Ms. Ryan is shaking, you know.
Well, because I have staff have to do it.
Right, I understand. So do you think it's possible in a week? Just honest, no, it's not.
Come on.
Even if it's possible, the problem is, if we recommend something, you may have more questions. I don't know if it's possible for us to get all of our issues out to your staff, to you, in a week. It's tight.
Right, it's
working from this
impossible. And then your council needs to hear also. Am I correct?
At this point, if we're making changes, I would not feel comfortable doing it without.
I guess I changed my motion first. Well, I'm not going to change my motion. My motion was that we proceed with the 2 items, and then over the year we'll continue to work with the city to see if we can make it work. Because you have questions we need to hear, and then you need to hear our part, and then this is time. That's what
definitely unusual today.
I'll second that.
Yes, Commissioner Sickman and Commissioners, I would not want something that I developed as an opinion over a period of time become something that was codified into law. If Commissioner Sickman has an attorney that has a different opinion, I think that we need to know the support for that.
That's completely separate.
I'm not going into convocation, because by looking at her, and I'm reading your lips. I mean, you're saying, yeah, we'll try to do it in a week, but let's get real. Do you think that you're a city, and then you have to go back to your council, and then they have to look at it? It's not going to happen. It will not happen.
See, I think it's a bigger issue than just the codification charter. I think the interlocal agreement has something, a plan here. We're just throwing that out. So, and I think that interlocal agreement for.
Maybe they should be done at the same time. I know that the interlocal agreement is being worked on by Treasurer Voters right now. And it was scheduled for another meeting, so maybe that would be the appropriate time.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I did second that motion, and in support of it, I'd just like to add that, we have been dilly-dallying and talking about this a couple of years, if I remember correctly. And finally, we got to the point where we can get the city to agree to things that, to everybody except Blair is important, and that's our salary. And then the other thing is, the other item, those two items. Why don't we just, go ahead, it's the motion, do it. If this thing about codification is so very scary and nitty bitty, and it's gonna take a long time. I agree with Commissioner here. We're just not gonna do that overnight. Then we're gonna get to Riviera Beach and Palm Beach. Oh, do it this way. No, do it that way. Do it this way. No. All this baloney. Let's get the two things that are important to us. Get them done. Pinsky, get them done. Done.
Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Any other discussion?
And the motion includes the way the compensation language is on line 132 to 134, and the foreign trade zone language as the way it is on lines 259 through 279.
Ryan, did you hear that?
I did not, I'm sorry.
Yes, she agrees.
She has the word.
All right.
Pam agrees.
I just wanted to make sure.
I do, yes.
Yes.
Also,
Compensation.
oh yes, and just confirm with Chair Pardo, we would support you in any way with your two issues in the legislature.
Well, we're going to need it because, again, I think we'll be okay, but it is the caveat that we're going to tweak our charter without codifying. So, with that.
Okay, any other discussion?
One question, Mr. Pinsky. When you tell me we're going to tweak our charter, you're not going to say without codifying.
No.
Oh, I didn't.
No, but
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Carries 4-1.
thank you for making my life easy.
Surprise.
Anything else you have, Richard?
No, sir. Thank you for really simplifying things for me. That's very helpful. I love you all for doing that. Is there anything, question today, the Ports Council was making a presentation to the House Transportation Committee talking about projects. We still have to discuss funding, project funding, so at some point, I know I sound like a broken record, but I really need the port to identify the priority projects so I can go help get money, including the MPO project. Unfortunately, and Commissioner Richards knows this, we just missed the immediate 5-year. We could probably in the next few months get an amendment to the 20-year plan, and then next year move it up to the 5-year plan, but trying to get something on the immediate 5-year plan right now from the MPO is going to be a little difficult.
Thank you. Mr. Bishop, before you go, I do want to thank the town of Palm Beach for being here. The mayor called me 3 days ago and told me that there was an issue and she didn't want us to be surprised. So that was helpful. The town manager called me today. That was helpful. Thank you to your office. Ms. Bensky, thank you for your efforts. I would ask, though, that you please use the next week or two because City Attorney Pam Ryan, I believe, mentioned there might be some verbiage that would allow the codification to, these are my words, I interpreted there might be some verbiage that they can come up with our approval that would allow the codification to go forward. That was early in the discussion before we made a left turn. Yeah. Obviously, we would love to get the codification done, and I don't know if that's a caveat, there's nothing here shall include Florida statute 153 or whatever the number is. 550, I knew this was 53.
And that's what she and I kind of drafted. It would be a new addition to the charter. But
clearly Palm Beach would not, I don't believe they would oppose that, and nor would the, forgive me for speaking for you, and if River Beach were involved in that, they would be on board. So that might allow the codification to go forward by saying nothing contained here in supersedes or meant to supersede 553 or something to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, direction, do you want me then to actually try to encourage some Town of Palm Beach, Riviera Beach proposal and to bring it back?
To save the codification.
I think mostly Riviera Beach I think is what you need to work with Pam Ryan and.
My friend's making a face back there, but if there's verbiage that says nothing here precludes or overrides 553, that might allow.
You just had a motion that said you're gonna wait, so.
Yes, he's asking.
Yes, and that's the language that we talked about.
And I'm saying that let's resurrect that because it may allow us to save the codification.
Okay. I think staff had some other smaller issues, but if that's our main concern, and if the board would agree to that language, I think it would simplify the process considerably.
Mr.
Bring it
Chairman?
back, I mean, Richard's gonna have to, I'm kind of lost on the changes, which, I mean, they only came about 10 minutes before the meeting. So, I mean, I talked to Richard 20 times in the last month.
Well, no, the main thing is 553, and it's for this discussion, Mr. Chairman, it's a discussion.
Right.
The thought is, with verbiage to the effect that says, nothing in the codification is meant to supersede Florida Statute 553.
Mr. Chairman, would you entertain a motion for us to direct staff that in the eventual product, whether it's next week, next month, next year, or next decade, it would include that language? And therefore, if Ms. Ryan and the city could accept that direction from our staff to our staff, they could go back to their staff and maybe it could happen next week, next month, next year, or next decade.
Right, because Mr. McCarthy, as she said, it still has to go back to their council.
Correct.
And their council will not be meeting next week or week after next. Am I correct? Am I correct on that?
You know, I would feel comfortable speaking with my council members and sending them
Right, I
a memo.
understand.
And it's not necessarily something that has to be voted on by them because
You're not giving anything up.
staff's recommendation, right? But if you all don't mind, I would like, can I read the language that I'd like to add? And this might, yeah, sure. Okay. Another section in the charter, nothing contained herein shall be construed as superseding the requirements of the Florida Building Code as set out in Chapter 553 Florida statutes as amended.
So
That's
you're,
it.
so you're saying that if that is added, your city will agree and that will be all in the charter as far as codification. Nothing else will be there.
There may be a couple of other issues, but they're not major. This is the major issue.
So you're saying you would let it go and the other couple, other issues you'll just forget about?
Gee,
Well, let's
Richard-
just take the time.
Yeah.
Right, but I can't speak for staff,
I understand.
but that is the major issue.
But let's leave the motion the way it is because I think we're better off. That's right.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know your motion.
Well, we gonna
Made a motion to direct staff to include Ms. Ryan's language in the eventual product, whenever that product is made.
But still, it's gonna have to come back to us.
Yes, we have to, if we want to, if Ms. Ryan is successful and can get approval from her folks next week, we would have to have a special meeting if we wanted to do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I promise this is the last time I'll talk to you today.
That's okay.
Thank you, Blair.
Confusing.
And I don't want to speak for the city attorney, I'm not the city attorney. Ms. Ryan is.
Well respected.
Oh, thank you. But clearly, if the verbiage that is being tossed around now, it says that the status quo, the current statute be maintained. She wouldn't need to get our council to vote on whether or not the current statute should be maintained. So if that's something that we were to approve, it really, I think we're 98% of the way there for codification. City attorney has said there were a couple of truly minor issues that I think she and staff and Mr. Spencer can handle.
All right, well, that's what they need to do.
Do we want it, but Gene, you want to wait on that?
No, let's see if she can bring it back. If you can bring it back in 5 days.
She just did.
If with that, and let me get a couple
Okay.
other issues squared away, which I would consider them to be minor. We could probably get that done in 5 days.
Okay.
But I will be honest, Mr. Sickler and Commissioner Sickler, when you spoke about 553, I said we're far apart, so I didn't think it could be done in 2 weeks, but if you all are amenable to that, that has always been our position, and
Well, like I
we're
said,
not opposed to it.
All right, well, let's try, and I'll speak to my attorney and our
He's right there.
No, I mean, after what they're changing, she just said they're changing a few things. I like to see things before I vote on them. I mean, that's fair, right?
And I'm, of course, open to speak to any of your attorneys.
Right, and if push comes to shove and you all can do it,
Greg,
then we'll have a special meeting.
Greg, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up the possibility that you may want to vote on it today.
No, we don't want
With
to do
Pam's
that.
language. No,
No, we're not.
and then we can see how important their other changes are to that.
No, no, let's just forget that. That doesn't make sense at all.
Mr. Chairman, so where we are, my motion stands,
Right.
and Ms. Ryan, if you can do it and jump through the hoops, we're entertaining you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair, just one question though. Are we anticipating a special meeting or we're bringing this back?
It could be.
It could be, let's see if Ms. Ryan can do whatever she said, because she said they still have 2 or 3 little minor things. We need to know what those 2 or 3 minor things are.
There's no way we can.
Right, because we don't know what they are.
Richard, do you have anything?
Just a question, you've extended a courtesy to the city of Riviera Beach. The town of Palm Beach is sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
They've expressed, I don't know if they're similar concerns, but they've expressed also, are you extending to them? Not that I'm speaking on their behalf,
Absolutely.
but,
If they
okay.
want to meet with you, if you could get them.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
You know,
I can get them to
fine,
meet with me, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you know, so
Okay, good.
they're more
That's
than
all I
welcome.
need.
That's it. All right, so we're done with that and we'll move on.
Amen.
Okay. No business.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Karen Brandon with AECom. Just going to give a real brief slip 3 update. As you can see from the latest photos that were shot about a little over a week ago, the project has basically been completed. We have some miscellaneous minor items. A lot of it has to do with site cleanup and getting the final as-built survey done. But all the paving has been completed and all that work, major work. The next item is change order 26, which consists of 2 parts. One is to adjust the final contract time with an extension of 13 calendar days, bringing the final contracted completed date to August 29th. And we're considering the actual completion date as September 5th, which would result in an assessment of liquidated damages at a rate of $1,000 a day of $7,000. And that's included in this change order proposal from Shoreline. So the total amount of the change order would be a deduction in the total contract amount of $7,000, which would bring the contract price with all approved change orders to $16.6 million, which would be $68,000 under the original contract price. So we are recommending approval of change order 26. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Last month or the month before we spoke, thank you. We spoke about change orders and extending time, and I said I hope that when we extend this time, we won't get zinged for additional monies.
We didn't get zinged for additional money.
But this one is a zinger, $1,000 a day.
That's against the contractor to deduct.
Okay, liquidated damages. Putting money back in our pockets. That's right. Thank you. I like that.
All right, then we have a motion. All right, Commissioner Richards, second, Commissioner Mastix. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed? 4-0. Thank you. I guess we're up to legal counsel.
We have a plan with Casey Long to go out. First, Greg Pick, Gary Dietrich, and Ryan are reporting on the status of the Palm Beach Maritime Museum case. We're going to, Casey and I are going to go out to the Palm Beach Maritime Museum and see exactly what other professionals we may need to bring in. I'm trying to keep the cost of that change order, not the change order, but the work order down without having to bring in professionals that we don't need. So I want to be able to go there with Casey, focus on some specific items,
and go from there. So that's the plan for next Friday morning, a week from tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I've given, or 8:30, I've given notice to the attorneys for Palm Beach Maritime Museum. And hopefully Casey and I will be in and out of there in 3 hours and see what, from there we'll see what the next step is. But they have represented that they've made repairs and that all they've made, all the repairs are going to make and all that are needed. So we need to see which ones have been done, which ones aren't done, and which others may need to be done.
And why are you going again?
Well, I'm going, I can do two things. I can send Casey out with every professional that he can think of, and they can make it, and they can look at everything. Or I can go over with Casey and say, Casey, these are the things that I'm interested in.
Or can you just tell them what you're interested in?
I haven't been over there in a very long time, Commissioner. I've seen pictures of some windows that are rotted. I'm assuming they're all rotted, but I don't know that. And I think, you know, for the time of, I don't really fancy getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get on a boat and go over to
Sure you do. You're over there every weekend. I know with all the parties.
Yeah. You know, I am interested in trying to keep the work order, and believe me, I think the investment of my time in doing that will be very effective in keeping the work order.
If you think it's important, that's fine.
Thank you. So that's my update on Palm Beach Maritime Museum.
Commissioners, we also have Don Bicknell.
Yes, we do. Here he comes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Don Bicknell, Gary Dietrich Ryan. I'm here to give you an update on the Stone Rock situation. And I think today I'm a bearer of, I would say, somewhat good news to good news. The last time I was here, the board directed to follow up with trying to assist in getting Stone Rock and the city into discussions and possibly a mediation to try and facilitate some sort of a resolution short of the proceeding to the special magistrate hearing. And we've had numerous discussions, and they look very productive and very promising. We're in the process of getting to a point that it will come to a head if it's going to, and it looks, as I said, very promising. What I'd like the board, or I'd recommend to the board, is that they, as they did last time, they indicated go ahead and explore the possibility for resolution, and I think there is a good possibility of that. But the special magistrate hearing is set October 22nd, and the board said in the event, and they voted on it the last time, in the event that there is not a resolution, we recommended, and we still recommend, that the board retain outside counsel, as the city has done. It has its particular specialization in the zoning and the municipal special master hearings. And I'd like the board to authorize that at this time, in the event that the settlement discussions fall apart, which I don't have any reason to believe they will. I think both sides have been operating in good faith and making progress. But the hearing is October 21st, so we won't have time to come back here and get that direction from you if they fall apart. So immediately there's nothing for the outside counsel to do. Let me follow up with Greg and Manny and Commissioner MacArthur's been involved in trying to a number of discussions about it. But if it does fall apart, I think the board needs to protect their situation and have directed us through discussions individually to retain. And the name that was suggested was John Eubanks, who has a firm that specializes in zoning and does this type of work. So that's what I would recommend.
First, Don, I'd like to compliment you. We've gone back and forth many times. I think the place we are with the city, I think it's very good. I'm very hopeful, and I hope this is all comes to fruition, but then I'm an optimist. But I would like to make a motion to direct our legal counsel to proceed with that, retaining the gentleman, the zoning attorney, should he be necessary. Hopefully it won't be, but I would like to make a motion to authorize you should it be necessary.
Just, if I could just, thank you.
Well, we have a second, go ahead for discussion.
Just, if it, and I believe, and I'll defer to Mr. Pickett because he's been involved in this more, but I believe that the authorization would be for the port to hire through our contract this person. So it wouldn't be us hiring them, but it would be under our contract, which is the way we've done it.
Of course.
Any idea what the rates are? 200 an hour or 1,000 an hour, do we know? Do we know?
Well, what I contemplated was that I would keep in touch with the board and the chairman and make sure that before any, obviously we're not going to do it without getting the final, but to answer your question, we have not negotiated a contract with them.
So you're directly the chair, you know.
Right, and Mandy's already spoken to him, and I've spoken to Don countless times about this, so I think it won't be a major problem.
And I think there's a very good chance that we may not need to go that far. And I'm very hopeful we won't.
I would say that is the situation. It looks very promising.
Yes. All right, any discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 5-0. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the G4, but Sam, come on up, Sam Oser.
I want to clap.
Yeah, Sam, come on up.
Always a pleasure.
Now, give us your name for the record, and I know you're a newbie.
What is your name, sir?
I can't remember, but we're glad you're here.
Forgot to send me a calendar. At any rate, it's been a long time since I've been here. I used to come here almost every meeting, starting about 20 years ago. Some of the things that I've heard said today were said 20 years ago. You know I respect you all, like you all, and I will, the decisions that you make, or ideas that you come up with, I will know about. You know I will. I want to say this, that since I've been here, living here, I've always thought you people know that the Port of Palm Beach never got the recognition that it should have gotten. And now finally it is a necessity. The state better recognize it, the country may have to recognize it. I always think into the future, and the future is now, 5 years now, 10 years from now. Whatever decisions you make, I will know about it, and you know I will know about it. I came here because with you, we have known the ups and downs that went on here. It took a long time to get to this point where things are moving ahead. I'm much concerned with Riviera, and much concerned with Palm Beach. I'm concerned with the people. I'm a man of the people. Although I will tell you folks, in business, I spent side contracts for millions of dollars. So I just want you all to know that, so I know where I'm coming from. And I will respect and know that you thought all of these things that have been said, and I've said before, I will know about it, and it's up to you to make that decision. I haven't been here for a long time, because, you know, you get older, things change. And there've been a lot of women around I have to worry about, of course, they're all from the VA, so I want you to know that. But I think one of the best things that you've done, and that's the reason I'm here, to speak about one individual who has become so important to work with you, to work with him, And I know that he's not only thinking about today, first of all, he's done some terrific things and able to squeeze out extra space here, been in touch with people, has been in touch with people who are interested in coming to the area. And I think he's done a magnificent job, and that's why I'm basically here. You all have done a terrific job, especially your wife. And Manny, thank you so much for the people in the area and what you've done. You've brought these people together. You're interested in what's happening in Riviera. You're interested in what's happening in the entire area. You people have vision. You can see that this is going to be in our area on the East Coast, one of the most important ports that you can have. It may take about 10 years, 15 years. But this is the guy you have to get things done. And you know I won't like it if you don't do it. So other than that, I wish you all well. I love you all. Not necessarily the guy in the middle.
Exactly. Who you with today? Would you introduce who's with you right over there?
Let me talk.
Yeah, well,
but thanks for reminding me. I'm gonna go.
I don't want you to forget about it.
Please do.
Yeah, stand up. Come on up, hey. Just a little. Good to see you again.
I have to watch what you say.
Exactly.
Keep him in that.
But with all of this fooling around on my part, this is important. Important for people who will follow you, and certainly the people who will follow me. Manny, again, thank you. You were one of the best things that's happened the 20 years that I'm here. And you know I will work with you in areas that I work in. We won't get into that. And Peyton, you are the newest member here, although you worked before the poll. We know each other for a lot of years.
Yes, we do.
But there's a great group up there. I hope you make the right decisions, looking ahead, moving ahead. And I hope I'll be able to get to another meeting. But I gotta worry about these women.
Okay, Sam, thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
May you keep him in line now.
Man,
I didn't know what you said, and I may hold it against you.
This guy here.
I've been here now 7 years plus, and I've never had such an introduction, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Love you.
Thank you. I love you as well. Commissioner Sickland and I had gone over my review, and I don't know what the process is, but I'm all ears.
well, what we've done is we talked about a few things, and I wanted, if anyone on the commission had anything else to add, but beside what we've already written and what's in the minutes. I know you had one issue that you wanted to bring up about, I don't know if you want to do it today or you're working on it. So.
Yes, I would like to inform the board that I continue working with Mr. Pickens on putting the final touches on my annual contract. There's been some minor changes. I will be speaking once we come up with what I consider and he considers to be the right language. So the contract will be coming to you next month, but I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to reach that common goal.
So we'll receive that prior, Mr. Pickens, do you have any idea when we will receive it, way in advance, so we can go do it?
You will
Rather than
absolutely
last
have a
minute?
week in advance.
Okay.
Sure.
2 weeks?
Sure.
That's very long.
2 weeks in advance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've observed this process from both sides of the dais over the years, and I always thought it puts our chairman or chairwoman in an awkward situation because it forces them to do a one-on-one evaluation, which then has to be ratified or amended or rejected by the entire board. I have a question, and I hate to ask you this question, Mr. Almira, but it's necessary. Do we have the right to fire you at any time?
With or without cause?
With or without cause. So my question is, I don't know that this annual review, the way we do it, is really necessary. I think each and of us are more than capable of informing you of our appreciation and our dissatisfaction. I know you and I have shared both.
Yes.
And I would imagine every other member of this commission has done the same. I would like, in the future, I would like to see this, you know, be handled more like, and I'm sorry, I come from the county, so I see how they do things. I think it should be an automatic renewal with the same salary increases employees, and the reason that's good is in good years, when the board might be very generous, it would go up, and in lean years it would go down. But I mean, why are we reviewing somebody that we have the authority to fire anytime 3 members of the board think there should be a change at the top? Which seems to be an exercise.
I understand. That's why this year's been a little different. You know, in the past, there's always been a long, you know, report. And this year, I kind of said, well, any commissioner, call Manny, you know, talk to him, and which everyone's done anyway.
Exactly.
So that's what we've
And I think we always will. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to be quiet if we're upset about something.
Exactly.
You know, we may not be as gracious when we're happy, but we're more than capable of expressing ourselves when we're not. Anyway, I would just like to throw that out to the board. I would just like to change the way we do these and not put the chairman or chairwoman on the spot. And knowing that we do have the authority, unless Sam's in the room, that we do have the authority to fire you at any time. And anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, I'm going to have to find my card right now.
Having come from corporate America and a little bit with attorney for HR, I've seen the importance of an annual review. You owe the employee, you owe the employee the respect and the time to go over their performance. I think the first year that I was chair, when I didn't have any gray hair, it was determined that we did not have any means. It was sort of haphazard, and I was very uncomfortable in doing that. So I was able to utilize our employment council, and we came up with a 3 to 4 page performance review with very clear and concrete criteria. And we've used that mostly. This might be the first year, with respect, that we haven't done that. And that's okay, that's the chairman's prerogative. But I like having clear criteria that we can measure the performance of our director. And our director, and I think our senior employees, most definitely deserve the respect for their superior to sit down and say, here are the areas of strength, here are areas that can be improved, let's move forward. I would not want to be in a position where I'm simply floating and have no concrete idea how am I doing. Corporate America has definitely determined that's not the way to go, and I think we owe our director that concrete feedback, at least on an annual basis. But you're right, we can do that monthly, weekly, daily, if not hourly. Some of us do that.
Some of us do that.
Yeah.
But we owe him that. We owe him that.
Yeah, the only problem, and I kind of agree with Peyton, is that you put it on the chair, whoever the chair might be, and, you know, why would he have the power to rate the director?
Because he deals with the director far more. He talks to the director almost every day.
I can solve the problem.
Okay.
I agree with all of you, but let me tell you how I see the whole picture. Now, I'm agreeing with, at first, Commissioner Richards, because I believe that everyone deserves an well, he did this. If he has an annual review, I have something concrete, I can pick it up and say, hey, and I can write a nice letter for you, or else I can write one that says, goodbye. Okay, now, so I believe that we should have an annual review, and then we should have a performance. But the difference I would like to see is that each commissioner plays a role in that performance. And then we, put out the numbers or whatever, and then we come up with satisfactory, unsatisfactory, goodbye. Make it simple. And then that would take some of the pressure off of the chair. No, I'm not saying that because how it is now, the chairperson evaluates blah, 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 and then, we all agree, but I think that if we all have a part in that performance review sheet. And the one we used before, I think, is a good instrument because it goes over every individual aspect of the court and what we're requiring him to do. And we need something that we can go and we can measure by. But the difference I would do is to have every commissioner. Then the third thing is that because we can fire him at will, then we need to look at that time we will make the decision, do we want to add a year, just add a year to that, and that's it. So after the annual review, then the commissioners will make a vote and decide, do we want to add a year? In that review and performance review, we can even write it down, that we believe we should add that year. And then it's done. We all get together, we hear a meeting, hey, look at the reviews, and then we can give it to Miss Peggy. And she can just say, hey, this is what we have. And I think, because we'd be objective.
And Commissioner Wright, I think it makes sense to have more than one person really opining. We've always allowed everyone else opine, but it's really been 99% on the chair. So it makes sense that all 5 of us would opine. But, we added the year provision probably 6 years ago, and it's added significant stability. You may recall, we went through a period of quite a bit of turnover. It provides support for the director. The director has a good year. We then make a motion to add a year to the contract. So the director always has 3 years in their pocket. It's stability. So that's why we did that. It's worked thus far.
But let me ask you a question. When we add the year, I guess the big question is, all the time we add a year, I have no problem with that, but I'm saying at that time of the contract and evaluation, then we would add a year. So then what happens is we still have annual reviews. Now suppose, we're just, okay, just forget it. So every year we have the evaluation, then the performance evaluation, we look at it, all commissioners look at it. Then at that time, we will check off if we want to add the year. And then it's gone.
Go ahead, Bruce. I kind of agree that putting all the burden, burden on the chair to hire, fire, raise a salary, or promote our director is not quite fair. And I do like, and I think it was Wayne's procedure that we followed, where we have a bunch of categories that you're selecting upon which to grade and rate our director, and that each of us should have the opportunity to participate in that. And that, I guess, goes along with what Gene was talking about, and what we've done before with Wayne's procedure. So I would say that if that was the motion that you made, we go under that procedure where we follow, I guess you could call Wayne Richards' program, and we all participate. And then as to the extension of the salary and the term, the employment, I would with
one for you. If we can give someone a 3 year, we add a year, and then they say, hey, he didn't do right or whatever. Not saying it's gonna happen, and we wanna get rid of this person. What is the significance of adding a year if we can let them go at any time? I guess that's the big question. I know it provides stability that, you know, he has a 3-year contract, but to me it really does if I'm looking at it, because you might give me 20 years, but if you can say you have to do it tomorrow morning, what difference does it make? It's not, you really don't have 3 years. Am I correct?
Well,
Does that make sense?
You are correct, except that then you look to the termination provisions of the contract and what the employee, in this case the executive director, would be entitled to in the event of termination. So if you terminate for cause, you may not have to pay anything. If you terminate without cause, you would have to pay whatever the contract.
So without cause, then you have to look at the years. With cause, you don't. You have to do it.
Well,
is that the difference?
Correct. With cause, you may not have to pay anything. If you terminate without cause, you look to the contract to see what the termination provisions are. Now, we can termination with cause, without cause, but we have to pay you X amount of dollars.
And that's in the contract. Right, and that's what Manny and I spoke about, because there were some changes. I'm in the process now, actually, of finding out from other courts and what they do on that. So when this contract comes up next month.
I have the Port Canaveral contract and for their executive director.
So that's what,
and they had to address that issue.
Right, so that's what I want to find out from you then, because I've talked to a couple of the commissioners at other courts, and just to find out how they work on that. So we'll work on that for next month. And then next year, I think it would be a good idea that we all get involved, because, you know, we've had years in the past that the chairs sort of say what salary should be, and, you know, what kind of, and that's not fair, I don't think. So I think it's a better idea.
So really?
Yeah, next month, yes, for this contract. All right, very good. Any other questions for the director?
Okay, thank you.
Any new business? I don't see anything. Manny, any new business today?
No, sir.
Okay.
Before you close.
Yes, sir. You're leaving?
So long, guys.
All right, thank you. Goodbye, nice seeing you both.
Take care, Manny.
Bye-bye. All right, under comments from the public. Ardise Johnson, come on up.
Good evening. I'm here again because I appeared before you in your August meeting about venue for Western Dance, and that was rejected. And it was hinted that you may be able to give us some funding. So I have submitted the letter, and I was told it was under the grants. And on behalf of Eta Phi Beta Sorority, we would appreciate any fund that you can give us.
We already did.
Oh, you did?
Wait.
I was late.
It was, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
It was approved under the consent agenda early. It was a $500 grant that was approved for the organization.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We really appreciate it. And thanks to the staff persons who told me what I needed to do.
Yes, all right.
Thank you.
I wish you the best with your event.
Thank you.
Okay. Charles.
Good evening, Commissioners. Charles Bantel, 438 49th Street. A few observations about tonight's meeting. One, a recommendation that you leave the wording in the new charter alone. Why? I do construction. If you adopt the language that was there for 553, I can no longer build your buildings. What happens in construction, all the time we have to go by local code. All of that code deals with life safety issues, and many of them are inherent to the locality that you build in. The best way to handle it is for any building is to go by interlocal agreement, because that way you'll be in compliance with that municipality's life safety and fire rules. So that's the best way to handle that, because the charter allows you now to build outside of your traditional boundaries and outside of Riviera Beach. If you go with our plan, you're stuck with it, and then if me, as a contractor, I go there to build, I can't build it because I have conflicting codes. And who's gonna do the building inspection? And then you run into problems with the insurance and the funding of it because you can't get insurance. That's that. Second, on the dredging. I love how they just come in and they give you negatives and then they leaves. Not one of them. And I listened to Sierra Girl, she went off on a report from the dredge. That's all the negative side effects real close to the project. What they forgot was, if this picture went 4 floors down, all of seagrass in that area would do a whole lot better because seagrass needs seawater. She talks about scuba diving next to the wall there. I don't play on I-95. You know, that's an extremely dangerous area to dive. You're breaking the law diving there. I want to dive there, police run you out. It's the highway. Plus, for Riviera Beach, they've had a tremendous dive group that now goes underneath the Blue Heron Bridge. Why? It's a coral reef. That whole coral reef, with more seawater, may become much better. Plus, there's a trench on this side of Singer Island, which would have more coral in it and become a better reef with more seawater, plus all the seagrasses further north. And as for Lois Frankel, why doesn't she address the drainage issues, all the things that she went ahead and opened up, all development out west, that drains all our fresh muddy water through the Southern Boulevard Canal, right in there, killing the seagrass, but then she says, hey, you can't dredge. Oh, by the way, 2 weeks ago, she endorsed a candidate that I've never seen at the port meeting to run against Mr. Mastix there. She wants to run a port, let her come to the port. I mean, seriously, it's gotten ridiculous. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Oh, and did you see the article where you're number 2 in economic development? That come out from the Palm Beach Post website at 3 o'clock today.
Yeah, we saw it.
Yeah, you could be number 1 if you could get the dredging done.
Yeah, well, we saw it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, any commissioners have any words of wisdom? Hayden? No?
Let's go.
All right. George, anything? Jesus left the building.
One thing, you always run a great meeting. You always run a good meeting. This is a great meeting. A lot of discussion, and I thought it went very well. Thank you.
All right, then our next meeting, what do we have coming up? Now we have our